Hello, welcome back to Oracle DBA tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss about database shutdown. So in the last class that we saw that we started the database. So startup process is just to recap your memory. Like now, what we are doing is that we are going to the three-step process. So we're going to go to from shutdown we go to mount, and then from mount we go to open. Okay, so that means initially from here is shutdown, then we create the instance creation. So instance created, and then in mount we read the control file. So read control file and locate the database files and redo log files, and here in open you open the redo and data files. So these are the three steps that we went in the startup mode. So now in the shutdown mode is going to just do in the reverse order. So the shutdown process is something like this, that we are going to first shut down, we're going to first close the database files and redo files. So that's a step one. So when you do that, the first thing is that close database file and redo log files. So remember, like if we discuss about database buffer cache and redo buffer cache, what we have is that we have some data buffers set here, right? And then so this is a data files, let's say. So in case of before we in the process of closing the database data file, that db files and redo log files, we make sure that we write all those data buffers to the data files. Okay, so before we close the data files, it makes sure that the data files, database buffer cache and redo buffer is going to be written to the data files and redo files respectively. Okay, and so basically the first thing is that in the close process you're going to basically plus buffer cache, and then we are going to close the files. So that is a step in the so that is the first step in closing. And next thing is going to happen is that's going to unmount database. So in this step, in the unmount of database step, what we're going to do, we are going to disassociate database to the instance. So this associate db to instance. Then the next step is going to do, we are going to close the control file. Close control file. Okay, so then this unmount thing is got done, and the last step is in the database shutdown process is called shutdown instance. So in shutdown instance, what we're going to do, we are going to release SGA, release memory structure or SGA, that whatever allocated. Then number two is that going to the terminate the background processes. Okay, so to terminate the background process, and then with all the steps, so database is all this is a proper shutdown. The database is now no more available in your machine. So there are three different modes. Okay, so there are three different modes on which you can shut down the database. The one that you give the command is called shutdown. So that means all three things are going to happen. Like it's going to close the DB files, unmount, and shut down the instance. So those are by default. That mode is called normal. Okay, so if I just write shutdown, that means the shutdown is normal shutdown. In the normal shutdown, following things happens. It will not allow you no new connection. That means if I shut down, if I give a command shutdown normal, then no other user after that point can connect to the database. If they want to connect, database is going to send them a message that database is in the shutdown process. You cannot connect anymore. So no new connection. However, Oracle is going to wait, like the data file will be closed, and next process is going to shut down normal. We will close the data files, right? But we cannot close the data file until all current users need to disconnect. Okay, so essentially Oracle will wait until all current users are disconnected. Then what it's going to do, it is going to write the buffer caches, like it will write the db buffer cache to the data files. It's going to write the redo log buffers to the online redo log file. Okay, so if you just forgotten, that's this, remember, I'm just going to do a quick reminder. So this is your SGA and this is your data files or databases. So database. So what we have in SGA, that we discussed that now we have different pools, and one of these pool is called buffer cache. So that means when you're doing some insert into table T is equal to some value, then the first thing is not going to written into database right away. It is going to be written in the buffer first, okay, in the memory, and then database writer is going to write that part to the data file eventually. So if you you can review the buffer cache video, which we have done sometime back. So that is the process is going to do, right? So whenever we are going to get a shutdown statement, like when database receives that okay, it's going to shut down, then what is going to do, it's going to write all the buffer cache which is available here right to the database, to data files. Similarly, the online redo buffer cache, those things will be written to the online redo log file. Okay, so write buffer cache and redo, and in the next startup, like if we shut down this thing, this is a proper shutdown. If we shut down this thing, next startup does not require any instance recovery. Okay, doesn't require any instance recovery. So this is the shutdown normal. But as you know, the problem here in shutdown normal, let's say this to a database we have like 100 users connected. So and then we want to shut down the database, right? We need to wait for this 100 connected user to get disconnected, and it doesn't matter, like if one of them is still connected, then this thing is not going to succeed. Okay, so therefore if you give shutdown and then nothing is happening, like the system, you may seem the system is hanging, but it's not hanging, it's waiting. Basically it is waiting all users to be disconnected so that the shutdown process can start. Okay, so therefore don't give shutdown, give shutdown something I'm going to explain later. Okay. The next mode is called transactional. That means I can do shutdown transactional. If I do shutdown transactional, the following things happens. The first thing is going to do, like it will no new transactions are allowed. Okay, that means let's say to the database we have two users, user 1 and user 2. So user 1 is doing some, both of them are connected, and user 1 has just now did a commit, and we have already given shutdown transaction, and so that means database is already ready to getting shut down. And then once the user 1 gives a commit, then this user cannot do any more new transaction. Whereas if you two, the user number 2, have not committed it, then it can keep that transaction going. And then when this user 1 is giving a commit, that means his transaction is done. Therefore user 1 will be automatically told to disconnect. So user number 1 will be disconnected. However, user number 2 is there. Eventually user number 2 is going to do a commit, then user 2 is going to be disconnected. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, disconnect the user once the current transaction is over. Okay, so once the current transaction is over, you can disconnect the user, and then it's also going to do the same thing, going to write to the buffer cache to the database data files and so on. And therefore again here in this case we do not require any instance recovery. Right, the next thing is called shutdown immediate. So in this case what's going to happen is that whatever the current SQL statement being processed, Oracle server is not going to complete. It's going to let's say for example same case, user number 1 is doing some SQL, so it will tell that shut down the stop the SQL execution. It may happen that it may be in the middle of some transaction, but in that case the transaction will be rolled back. Okay, so stop SQL execution, and Oracle is going to roll back any transaction that is currently going on, so that it's going to roll back. And then in the shutdown immediate also we are going to write from the buffer cache to the data files. So remember, in all these cases like shutdown immediate, shutdown transaction, or shutdown normal, we are going to always write from the buffer cache. We always flush the memory to the data files. So that is the thing about shutdown immediate. And the last one is called shutdown abort. So this is the if nothing works out, if your shutdown normal, shutdown transactional, shutdown immediate didn't work, database hangs, then probably the best way is going to go for shutdown abort. In shutdown abort, what you're going to do, instance is terminated abruptly. Okay, so instance terminated, that means the SGA is released and background processes are killed. And then in this case we do not database Oracle didn't have a chance to write buffer caches to the data files. Okay, so there's no chance that it can write those things to data files. And then so that whenever you're going to do startup next time, automatically the instance recovery will happen. Okay, so this is what is all about the shutdown process. And then I think it's very simple, straightforward. It's shutdown abrupt, shutdown abrupt, or shutdown normal, or shutdown immediate. You just write this command. So I'm not going to show you that one right now on my Oracle server, but you just can do yourself this command.